I used to think that that was probably true, and now I'm not so sure.
Why aren't you sure?
There was rumors of something called the Blue Room at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Oh, yes. Please explain this.
So supposedly the Blue Room was this room down in the basement of one of these hangars where they stored all the stuff that, like from Roswell and alien technology and even bodies. And it was rumored to be a thing for a long time.
Where is that base? Wright-Patterson,
in Ohio.
it's called?
Yeah, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Okay. It's basically pretty much acknowledged as being the place where a lot of this stuff ended up. But through a variety of evidence and stories and documents and everything else. Barry Goldwater, the senator, tried to investigate this, and he called Curtis LeMay, who ran Wright-Patterson at the time, and asked him about the Blue Room and got chewed out and said, never ask me about this again. So a lot of people were like, okay, well, we want to find this film from the Blue Room. So there was a few years ago, it's been like 20 years since this happened, but it did happen, and it's documented. The extensive Freedom of Information Act requests about the Blue Room and the film. The existence of this film was denied across the board. But finally, somebody asked the right questions and got it to the right department within the Air Force, who returned a Freedom of Information Act request that documented that there was a film of the Blue Room at Wright-Patterson Base with a project number, a media number assigned to it, that was actually shot of the Blue Room at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and was destroyed. Now, if that film was truly destroyed, that's an example of the fact that these guys have no problem just absolutely destroying evidence. If it was supposedly destroyed and it's sitting in a room somewhere and it was never destroyed, that's a different story. But there seems to be a propensity and a willingness by the government and the military. There's plenty of public records of the military going into a place where something happened and just destroying the evidence. And if they've they've destroyed the evidence of these craft and these interactions, I used to think that's impossible. They couldn't have done that. Who would do that? But I kind of like, well, maybe they have in some cases.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if it's like they're burning the test files, saying, "Oh, look at us burning all this shit. I guess it's all gone."
Yeah,
and it's really somewhere else. Like, it fascinates me.
I hope that's the case. I really do.
I do too, but it's still like a little sinister. It's
very sinister. This whole thing is sinister.
Yes.
I mean, it's like when I first got into doing stuff in the UFO field, it was because I was hired to video, because I own a production company. I was hired to go in and shoot and live stream a UFO conference back in 2007.
Oh, that's how you got into it.
So I got into the UFO thing.
No shit.
Legitimately, yeah. I mean, I've always had an interest.
Okay, so this is something you had at least thought about.
Yeah, I read the magazines, I watched the shows. I read Eric von Daniken's epic Ancient Astronauts. That was the movie that broke the ice for everything. It's still to this day one of the best-selling books of all time and one of the biggest movies. But Chariots of the Gods. Mm. But yeah, I got hired to do this thing, and I started watching these people parading around. It's where I interviewed Edgar Mitchell for the first time. It's where I interviewed John Alexander for the first time, Nick Pope for the first time. This is around 2007. And I got the bug. I'm like, wait a minute. This is the biggest falsehood, the biggest deception being perpetrated on humanity ever. And, as a journalist and as a video person and somebody that likes to dig for answers, I was hooked. And I've been investigating this for years, ever since. And I've been interviewing people. I have drawers of hard drives, probably well over 150 hard drives.
I'm going to cut you off right there. I'm going to tell you the same thing I told James Fox, and I'm working on him about this all the time. But for you guys who have been doing this for a while and have sat on camera with all these brilliant people for so many years, again, you make a documentary, you got to cut it to 90 to 120 minutes, something like that. All this stuff stays on the cutting floor. And you guys got to do the PBS Frontline treatment, where when they do these docs, they then have a separate channel where they post the raw interviews with all the people. You guys got to do that.
Well,
because
I've
the gold
done that.
You got to have in there is crazy.
So when I made I made something called the Disclosure Dialogues back in 2010, and it won all the awards at the time. It was basically, there was dialogues on disclosure with a feature movie called It Could Happen Tomorrow. And then it was a 5-disc set, and the other 5 discs on the set, the other 4 discs, were all the full-length interviews with the people.
All right, we need this from everything you've done since then. We got to make a YouTube channel strictly for it.
Well, there's Accidental Truth, the new documentary,
Yes.
that has literally 40 hours of interviews behind what is ultimately an 89-minute film. So there's the website inside of MUFON Television called AT Insider, Accidental Truth Insider, where all of that stuff is being published.
Okay.
So like Congressman Tim Burchett is in Accidental Truth saying some really cool stuff. But there's the interview with him was over an hour, and I went to his office and I set up multiple cameras. Something that nobody's seen yet, because I haven't put it out, is me sitting in his office for the first part of the interview, lining him out on everything we know from the Roswell incident all the way up until now. I'm sitting in a sitting congressperson's office with multiple cameras telling him the whole UFO story, that nobody's ever done that. And so that's going to be one of the behind-the-scenes things that people can access.
What was his involvement again? Like, what committee is he on?
You know, what happened with Tim, he's always been kind of into the topic. You know, there's a lot of people in government, we think that we have some kind of separation from them, but they're people just like us.
Yeah.
And he's always been interested in
He's
that.
not that high. He's a congressman.